So, before we get started, the panel's about entrepreneurship. I'd like to see a raise of hands. Who in here is currently an entrepreneur? If you own a business, part-time, full-time. Very nice. All right, who has considered entrepreneurship? Okay, maybe in some form or fashion, and then who says absolutely no way, not for me, not for me. Yeah, it can be scary, it can be rewarding. I'm just barely 1 year under my belt, so I'm lucky to be joined by this incredible panel, Matt, Jonathan, Mary Hyland, who's going to help me elaborate a little bit on what it's like and some of your experiences. So before we get started, I'd love to just hear intros. You guys could introduce yourself, your business, and maybe give just some context, not without going through your whole P&L. Like, what are maybe a couple metrics that might give people an idea of the size and scope of your business? Sorry, Matt.
May need to turn it on. Sorry.
All right, test, good. Hey everyone, I'm Matt Beecham. I'm the co-founder of GoodDays Classic Cocktails. We are a canned cocktail brand, so I like to talk about it. It's a cocktail in a can, moderate alcohol strength, light bubbles. We have been selling out of the market now for about 2 years, coming up on 2 years. We've rolled out 7 different flavors or cocktails since inception. Really, most of our distribution has just been here in Georgia, but we're starting to expand outside of Georgia. Sold through about 4,000 cases lifetime to date. And that hit on everything you want me to talk about?
Yeah, I think that gives us a size.
Okay.
Size of business. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, test. Hey everybody, Jonathan Newar, co-founder and CEO of Austin-based Captain Experiences. We're like Airbnb for booking, fishing, and hunting guides. So founded in 2019, launched in March of 2020, which was a pretty tricky time, resiliency there. But yeah, we've partnered with over 2,500 guides all across the U.S. and internationally. And we've done over 25 million bookings now and should do over 10 million this year. How's that?
Yeah, that's great. On the answer and on the actual work.
All right, hi guys, I'm Mary Hyland, founder of Mary Pip. We are pre-launch, so I have a lot to learn from these guys, but big milestone last year was we raised our first round of funding, $600K, to kind of get us through the year. And we've been really building the community this year, so we have 16 ambassadors, one's at Georgia, go Dogs, across the country, kind of lighting little fires everywhere to make finance less intimidating. We're all about behavioral psychology, behavioral finance, so we're kind of building the community now and about to go into our beta.
That's great. Actually, one thing that could be interesting for context, you mentioned you're just getting into it, so I'd love to hear what you guys did, because there might be folks in here that are in a corporate setting that are thinking about making a jump. Serial entrepreneurs, did you start your business right out of college? So maybe we go to that reverse order.
I can start there. So I studied, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I studied finance at Georgia and went to Deutsche Bank for the first 5 years of my career. So I was in the private bank managing kind of ultra high net worth money. And then in March of last year, I had always thought I could do it different, add some wellness, add some psychology to the whole finance conversation for more of a retail client. But of course, the stability of Deutsche Bank, I felt so lucky to be on Wall Street, so lucky to be there. But then in March, we were approached by Hulu to film a reality show, which is so random. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to quit. And Deutsche Bank was kind of like, you can't film a reality show here, sorry. So I kind of was pushed a little bit by my producers to quit and start this on TV. And in hindsight, I was so terrified. I'm definitely the shyest of my 3 sisters. It's called Love Nader, watch it if you haven't. But I'm definitely like the most camera shy, I guess you could say. So I really didn't want to present a half-baked business idea on national television. But I'm so grateful to my producers and my family who pushed me, because they built so much traction and we were able to build a community before I even had a product. So if you're thinking about it, just swallow your fear and do it, because growth is built in uncomfort.
Cool, yeah. Very similar to Mary Hyland. I never really saw myself as an entrepreneur. Graduated from Terry in 2017. with majors in economics and finance, and went into oil and gas investment banking for SunTrust in Houston, my hometown. From there, I went and worked in-house for the CFO of an oil and gas production company. That company sold in a big, exciting deal, and I go, hey guys, we're always in the office talking about our hunting and fishing trips. Let's finally book a trip to celebrate the deal. And they said, great job, Jonathan, you just nominated yourself to book us all a trip. So I said, okay, walked right into that one. How hard can it be? And grew up fishing my whole life, loved it, didn't know the who's who of guides. So called all these guides and just said, hey, this is an absolute mess. If you can book an Airbnb or call an Uber, what am I doing here? So drove down to the docks, talked to these guys and said, yeah, we'd love to, list on a platform that made it easy for us to earn more trips, manage our calendars, that sort of thing. From there, I said, hey, I think we really have something here. Left oil and gas behind, moved to Austin, and started Captain. So that's kind of connecting the dots there.
I'll continue on the finance theme a little bit. I graduated with an accounting degree and started my career in public accounting. Early on in my career, I took an opportunity to join a startup, at the time a startup retail brand called Onward Reserve, which was based in Athens and was in the process of moving their headquarters to Atlanta and raising some money, and was looking for a controller to join the team. So that was kind of my first taste of startups and entrepreneurialism. I ultimately, got back into public accounting, stayed pretty close with Onward and continued working with them. But yeah, I've really been working with and working in startups for a little over 10 years now. I live in Athens now. When I moved up there, I was commuting a good bit for the firm here in Atlanta that I was working for. Didn't necessarily want to do that long term, so I wound up opening a CPA practice in Athens. A lot of my clients were, small businesses, startups. Actually, I started gave away a Rugged Road cooler. I worked with Spencer and Rugged Road when they were kind of getting started. And one of my clients that I was working with was a brand called Vitalite. It's an electrolyte rehydration drink. And it was, very ground level, early stage when I started kind of talking to them, and the relationship there, started off very just, advisory like, they'd pick my brain for a question here or there. As they grew, they kind of leaned on me for, accounting work, but also, they said, Matt, you're good with numbers. So do you think you can help with production and inventory and things like that? So I kind of stumbled into really an operational role with them as well as an accounting and finance role. So ultimately went in-house with Vitalite for a couple of years as their CFO, and was again very, very involved in kind of the production and operations side of the business. So that's where I got to learn a little bit more about beverage. And certainly kind of what we call asset-light business model where, we're involved in formulation and product development, all the way through, the chain through sales and marketing. We outsource the production and manufacturing of the actual product. So I kind of wanted to apply that model to just a different category. And alcohol was, seemed like a fun thing to get into. I kicked the tires on a few different, ways to approach it, and ultimately, ready to drink cocktails. You might hear me use the term RTD, but canned cocktails, RTDs, were a high growth, subcategory within alcohol. And the more and more we looked into it, it just made sense to go that route. And so here we are with GoodDays Classic Cocktails today.
Yeah, so a lot of different paths entrepreneurs get there from any given angle. I had 10 years in corporate enterprise digital marketing consulting and hard pivot to the other side of the spectrum, like boom, just because I wanted to get into your world. So yeah, there's many ways to get in there. So I wanted to start with the first question. Is kind of fun. It's kind of an IG versus reality question. So we call this survivorship bias. A lot of people hear about the entrepreneurs who have been successful. It's like the overnight success in 15 years phenomenon. Meanwhile, I'm sure all of us have had what we call fetal position moments, where we're on a floor, literally or figuratively, and wondering, what have I done? So, I'd love to hear any reflections on some of those crucible times, and what are the key decisions, especially early on, that kept you alive? Maybe look back on. Matt, you want to go first? From many of your experiences, I mean, you've kind of been in a few different positions here.
So frame the question for me a little bit.
What was the time when you thought, what have I done here? And am I going to make it out of this? And what key decisions did you make? And looking back now with all your times in growing businesses, you might think some of those were kind of funny to be actually worried about, but you probably felt like the world was coming down.
Wow. We've done back a lot there. And maybe this is...
It's meant to be inspiring, by the way. Let's end this on a good note, yeah.
I have, so I mean, I'm 39, I've walked all briefly through my career, and I guess I've kind of gotten comfortable with the uncomfortable a little bit, and I've never, knock on wood, I've never, I guess, gone into anything that I didn't think I could see through and turn it into something worthwhile. Maybe that's just my stubbornness or my stupidity. But yeah, I mean, nothing has like knocked me down to the point where I'm like, oh man, like what am I doing? And part of that is, I've done this a little bit later in my career than like the typical like right out of college start a business model. And so, I've developed a network of people over time. I've, got a little bit of savings under my belt. I'm married, and my wife, thankfully, is so supportive and continues to work as well. So, I guess we've, I've just got a great support system around me that allows me to kind of feel good about it. And I guess I'm a CPA by trade, so most people would say I'm kind of risk averse, but I'm really not. But I like to think that I take calculated risks, and I really, when starting GoodDays, again, like looked into the category, looked, at what's there, what's not there, and I just feel so good about like where we are in terms of our product offering and how we fit into the category as a whole. That like yes, there's been plenty of mistakes along the way. Yes, like we're not where I wanted to be at this point. It's taken longer to get traction, and we're still very much working on that, on getting traction. But I still all the fundamentals are still there to kind of give me the encouragement and the confidence to just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like one of those moments where you just kind of say like, hey, what am I doing is was on the fundraising trail. So we raised about $5 million for Captain, and Donna touched on it, talking about children's and how your number one job as a CEO is to resource your business and basically not run out of money. And so I remember just doing the fundraising trail, talking to hundreds and hundreds of investors, venture capitalists, and they would all have these ideas and say, you're not doing it right. You should think about it this way or that way. I remember one person in Silicon Valley, specifically saying, hey, after every fishing trip, you should give your anglers an NFT token on the blockchain so that they can, keep their fish, on the block. And I was like, you do not understand our business at all. We're dealing with people who want to catch a big fish and, have fun. But I would take all of these notes and I would say, man, our business isn't worth a damn. Like these people, we got to tweak this or tweak that. And finally, I just hit that sort of like rock bottom point where I was like, screw it. These people don't know what they're talking about. We have a great business, and if they don't see that, that's on them. And when I kind of had that mindset shift, immediately people started investing and wanting to be a part of it. And so I think, it's, I don't know, it's just a tweak, in mindset, and that's, what got us over the hump in that moment.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. I love to hear if you have experience like that. The big part, I think, is what could we be, what should we be, like what are we?
And just like believe in yourself and don't kind of, take advice and think about it, chew on it, but don't take it as the gospel. I guess be confident in your own path.
Yeah. So
I am, completely piggybacking off of that. I struggled with imposter syndrome, like to the max. I mean, I was like a reality TV star starting an investment firm, and then like a Wall Street girl on reality TV. Like, I didn't feel like I was in the right place in either arena. So for the longest time, I was waiting for the perfect advisor, the perfect investor. I don't know anything about tech, a tech co-founder to kind of tell me what to do when it comes to my business. And I feel like as a woman too, it's really, we have very high EQ and we're very good listeners, and that's a huge strength of ours, and it's also a differentiator, but it's also our instinct and, having our perspective as a woman as a consumer woman that makes us different and that makes our companies thrive in some instances. So I think for a long time I was looking for people with gray hairs on their heads to like, tell me what to do, like I'm 26, I need help, I don't know what to do, and finally I had the exact mindset shift that you were mentioning of like, wait, I'm differentiating this industry because of how I see it, and because part of that is because I am a woman and I need to trust my instinct and not, take advice like you said, but don't take it for Bible because you're starting this company for a reason. So definitely imposter syndrome, getting over that hoop. Still working on it, but we're a work in progress.
Yeah. What do you think the imposter syndrome is just something that you just gotta work through? It just takes time to overcome, and more conversations, more self-discovery.
Totally, and I think that my kind of shift was, or the cure to my anxiety was little actions, like little small things. I would talk about this idea, but then when I started, I built a prototype in Lovable, just played around in it and like built something. And now with AI, you can do anything. Like you can literally learn about anything, do anything. So I would just create little pieces of evidence, like I wanted a high fashion financial magazine, and I was like, let me just make it in Canva. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? And now I have that artifact that I can actually show people and show people I'm thinking about it. So I think that the small actions I took kind of compounded into evidence, and then that evidence quieted my self-doubt. And it's still working, like one foot in front of the other, always.
Especially Jonathan and Mary Hyland, Matt has a series of entrepreneurial ventures throughout his career. I'd love to hear comments on comparing and contrasting your time working for huge corporations to entrepreneurship. What support systems were there that you had to create for yourself? Like Matt talked about how he's created his own support system. Like, what are the other things that have changed in how you operate as a professional?
So much more fun being I mean, I worked in a major, international bank, so there was so much red tape to get through and cut through. But because of that, my first hire was compliance, because I knew, this is not to be trifled with, we're not messing around. But when you can build your own tech stack and like have your own systems, I mean, of course, everyone in corporate, you complain all day about how slow everything is and how you have to go up the ladder and this and that, and like when you're it's me, myself, and I'm right. Like right now I have contractors, but like I can just move so quickly, which also surprised me. I think that was part of what slowed me down at the beginning. I was like, oh, I'll just wait for John to get back to me and tell me what to do, because like that's what I did at DB. I would just kind of wait, and find people, and then I realized like I'm the only one between where the business is at today and where it's at tomorrow, and if I don't take a step forward, it's not going anywhere. So I love it so much more, having the autonomy and the flexibility, but I'm curious to hear, because investment banking is even more intense.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is the thing that like transcends is just support network, finding mentors, things like that. So in the oil and gas days, I just try to read up and do all the information gathering that I can, and then just reach out to mentors and like those that have already been around the block and just say, hey, this is what I think. What do you think about this situation? And they would share their feedback, because you come informed to those conversations, and that just lets you see around the corner and get ahead, kind of piggyback, that sort of thing. And then with Captain, I mean, it was that to the extreme, so. In Austin, I do my best to connect with folks and network, and would be in touch with founders who had been before, and I'd say, hey, one of the X's and O's things that's totally different from oil and gas to Captain is marketing. In oil and gas, you just take the price of oil, West Texas Intermediate, and that's, you ship it off and you make money. In Captain, you got to market the business. So I'd go to founders in Austin and just say, hey, I'm new to this, I'm thinking about doing it this way. And they'd say, oh, I had a travel marketplace, you've got to get into SEO, search engine optimization. So then I go home, read up on SEO, try to, mess around myself and figure it out. Have another follow-up with them, and they're like, oh, wow, you're getting smarter about this stuff, here's what you need to do. And, SEO early on is how we got the business off the ground. So, that piggybacking thing, even when the X's and O's don't translate, that sort of, framework and game plan, I think, can help.
Yeah, any thoughts, Matt?
No, I love what y'all have said, and I mean, I've just always been pretty independent in general, and yeah, I mean, Fraser Neater was not necessarily a small company, and being in public accounting, there's certainly the hierarchy you got to deal with, but yeah, I've just always been comfortable with kind of the mantra of like figure it out, been felt like I've always been pretty resourceful. Whether it's calling someone to get guidance on something that you're not super familiar with, or maybe calling someone who can actually provide a solution too. Just building that network out has been good over time.
Yeah, I was thinking about asking the question, what Terry class or major would be most critical to your success in your business, but then I thought, well, the answer is all of them, because either you know enough to be dangerous in a field like marketing, or even if you're outsourcing, you don't want to get somebody that's just taking your money and you don't know. So you got to know enough to be dangerous in every single field of your business and have a pulse on it. So I think that's another change. If there's something that if you're uncomfortable with one area of business, well, that will be your daily responsibility as an entrepreneur. We talked a little bit about finding the identity of your business and doubling down on that. I want to ask you guys about persistence versus changing course. Right, so you come up on a challenge, there's some headwind in the market, and your competitor does something. When do you know, and how long does it take you to push through and overcome that versus making a fundamental strategy change in the business? Any examples that you have?
Sure, I can take that one off the bat. So yeah, in the early days with Captain, figuring out this whole marketing thing, we had to do, search engine optimization, and then everybody said, hey, once you figure that out, and that's basically just code for ranking on Google, they said, hey, you should layer on paid advertising, paying for those paid spots on Google, so that someone searching destined fishing charters or whatever lands on our platform and can book a trip. But the stakes get a lot higher with paid marketing, because instead of just staying up all night and doing SEO for weeks and weeks and weeks, you're paying Google, the engine, per click, and so if you mess up, you're just lighting money on fire, which is what we did for a long time. So at first, my co-founder and I, we said, hey, we tackled this SEO thing, we can do this paid thing, no problem. And so yeah, we just lit a bunch of money on fire, and it was horrible, it was terrible. But from there, we started to say, hey, are we just gonna, cut bait? No pun intended. Are we just gonna cut bait, or is this a channel that should work? And again, going back to those, conversations that I had with others who had been around the block, this thing's supposed to work. Okay, well then you have to dissect it and say, hey, we're committed to this. This is going to work. It's just common sense. What is breaking for us? Is it, our talent? Is it our strategies? And in this example, it was obviously talent. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. So we're like, all right, let's go and find somebody who does. So then we started to find, a freelancer or whatever. They screw it up. We say, hey, we're going to stick with it. We go, hey, let's find an agency. They screw it up. And then, we keep networking and we find the right agency. They plug in and it takes off, So, it wasn't the first time, it wasn't the second time, but each time you have to go back and you say, we believe in the end, the end result of this equation. Let's go back to the variables that we're putting together, and we got to fix something in this equation because we know the result that we're supposed to be having.
Maybe a lesson in working capital in there. Lit so much money on fire.
Yeah. I mean, just don't try not to light money on fire.
It's inevitable.
Expensive.
I'll go next. We're in a category that's not. We're in a business that's not brand new, right? So canned cocktails were around before we got started, and so when I think about whether we're doing something that we need to just push through versus make a pivot, we're very much in a build, learn, type mode. Pivot, change, whatever. But I think the big thing is you've got to believe. So you've got to believe of what will work. So put something out there, right? Get sort of your minimum viable product out there. Don't have to be perfect or whatever. But then look at the data. Look at the category data. For us, like we have that luxury, right? Because we're not the only one in this category. Look at your own data. So, we've got, like I said, we've rolled out 7 different flavors so far for cocktails, and we're in this process right now of saying, okay, this has worked, this is not working. What do we need to drop? What are we going to push forward with? And vodka. You look at the category as a whole. Vodka as a spirit base is what 80-90% of the category is. We've got multiple spirit bases right now. Most of them are vodka, but we've got a gin and a whiskey one as well. And all of them taste great. I think we've made phenomenal tasting drinks, and consumers validate that. But at the end of the day, if the mass consumer is not gravitating towards our whiskey sour or our gin gimlet, like we gotta look ourselves in the mirror and just have those realistic conversations of what's best for the business? We know this tastes great, but if it's not going to allow us to hit sort of the momentum that we need to hit, then you gotta strap it and move on.
Action and measurement.
Yeah.
And that's what you mentioned, Mary Hyland, is getting the MVP out there with the Catalyst, for example. So what else would you say about testing and driving towards pivoting?
Yeah, I would say this question, you guys both touched on it, but it really comes down to your customer. Again, we're pre-launch, but the first thing that I did, one of those little action steps that I took, was just sent out 1 million type forms and was like, send it to everyone you know. I want to learn about your relationship with money and how you're thinking about it. And one pivot that I had to make was on our TV show, I was dead set on building something for inconsistent earners. By 2027, half the workforce will be freelance. I was like, this is it, this is the future, I'm gonna build something specifically for them. So it was kind of set in stone in my head that it was gonna be an inconsistent earner, solution. And then I sent out all these type forms. Pretty soon we had thousands of responses. And not only were over half of the respondents not freelance, they were like, oh, can this work for me? And I was like, shit. I thought it was gonna be for freelancers. This is changing my whole plan, I already said it. But I did notice other data in, that, and by the way, read the mom test if you're considering, any type of consumer product or entrepreneurship. But it's an amazing book about how to speak and ask your customers their question. But anyways, a common thread throughout all thousands of respondents, no matter what their occupation was their psychology and anxiety that they had with money. So whereas before it was very disruptive, I was gonna be, you know, the next gen finance app, whatever, I realized very quickly that it needed to just strip away all of the, you know, anxiety that people have around money, and that was solely because I continued to talk to my customers. So we brought in PhD psychologists and completely pivoted the business to be more behavioral finance focused as opposed to, you know, freelance focused. And that's kind of the rules that we're going with entering this beta. That's why we did the ambassador, so we could hear what people on campuses are saying about money and what they don't teach you in school. But our kind of rule of thumb is if the customer, you know, wants it, and we have all this data too, which is amazing now. You can see where they drop off in the onboarding, and you can see which buttons they don't like pressing. And so we can easily, no matter how married you are to a feature or to your previous idea, constantly having an open line of communication with your customers is, you know, so important.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy. Can't underestimate the amount of wrong you can be when you think you know your
Yeah.
customer's always right when they're telling you how they'll spend money with you. So maybe just as we transition towards questions, we can go down and, you know, if you've got somebody that is maybe thoughts entering their head, they're 6 months in entrepreneurship, they just want to build something for themselves. What is some brief, you could go all day, I'm sure, what's some brief advice you give them? Mary Hyland will come this way.
Okay, I'll start. I wasn't prepared for this one, but I already have it. Take small steps, small actions, build evidence, and evidence will quiet yourself out. Like, that's my mantra now. It's like, if I don't feel like I can do it, what's one tiny little thing I can read or do or learn today that will help move the needle forward. So even if you're at work, I did this at DB too. I would just like play around and not put so much pressure on yourself too, you know?
Yeah, my test. Yeah, my advice would be don't do it. I mean, seriously, yeah. Dead serious. Do not do it. My first advice would be don't do it. My second advice would be don't do it. Third, fourth, fifth, you know, and then on the sixth time or whatever, if you come back and you say no, like I really want to do this, then you know we can talk about it, you know, and you can think about it. But I mean, like Mary Hyland said, you know, putting that plan together and you know coming up with that stuff. If you just jump into the deep end and you just say, you know, oh, like I want to start a business, it's going to be cool, or you know, it's going to be fun, or whatever, like you know, you're in for a wake up call because it is a lot of tough work. You know, we talked about how you know you don't have a boss, you don't have someone to report to. You're your own boss, and you need to be yourself's toughest boss, if that makes any sense. You know, it's gonna be tough. So know what you're getting yourself into. Come prepared. You know, do all the research and that sort of thing that you can. Build an MVP and you know track you know how your initial customers are doing it. You know, the Typeform stuff and Lovable is great. But you know, I don't know, putting a bow on that, like know what you're getting yourself into and you know accept that responsibility, I guess, before jumping in.
Those are, is this one too? Okay. Those are both great. And I love that, you know, don't do it. But yeah, if you keep obsessing over it, then yeah, I think it's the right thing to try to do. I love taking small steps because yeah, you're not going to achieve your goal in one day. And I would also say don't stress about having something that is brand new or first to market. Like there's pros and cons to that. Again, like we're not the first canned cocktail ever to be made, but we're the best tasting. So yeah, I mean, yeah, don't feel like you have to have something that's perfect, and then don't feel like you have to just be something that is totally brand new, first of its kind.
Yeah. Somebody who's read these books more recently than me probably knows, but it's like 90% of companies that start fail, and then there's a smaller percentage that make it above $1 million in revenue, et cetera. So it is, if you're ready, I mean, everyone here is a Terry graduate, right? So we're well positioned above the general population to do something like this. And you have a network, including people up here to draw from. So I think it's probably good to move to questions.
Everyone, thank for your time. My name is Chris. I need you to get to Here we go, tester. Thanks for your time. My name is Chris. I'm a member of the Terry and Alumni Board, majored in digital marketing, business management, and then I currently work at Deloitte Consulting as a marketing technology consultant. And I'm really just curious to hear y'all's mindset and perspective, especially as like very rooted entrepreneurs, how y'all feel about the ingestion of artificial intelligence, automations, if y'all use that in y'all's businesses with y'all's products and or services, or just see how that's going to be merged moving forward in the future.
I can start. I'm obsessed with AI. If you watch the show, you would know that for sure. But no, I mean, obviously the future is in artificial intelligence, and especially in the software and tech business, you have to be on the forefront. So when I was looking for the right engineer for this, I was specifically looking for someone who was experienced, and you have to really find an AI engineer who's ready to integrate. But that also combining AI with historically kind of outdated systems, like the financial system, has proven to be a little bit difficult, but everyone needs to kind of get on anyway. But we use it in every part of our business, and I think it can be there. You can get really rich data, introspective data. Like at the end of the week, I like to kind of reflect on some of the things I was thinking about. It's almost like never before have we had someone to speak so listen to me. But never before have we been able to speak so vulnerably, like with ourselves, and get, regardless of what it says, but like be able to introspectively look at that. So I think as a founder, it's been really helpful, and for the imposter syndrome, but then also for the rich insights we were talking about, like extracting from surveys and from where people drop off. And we're in finance using it more for a behavioral psychology perspective, for good, don't worry, but more kind of analyzing our consumer spending habits and extracting like what that could mean psychologically. So I think that there's just so many possibilities, and really can't be scared of it, especially in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'd also say, implementing AI across your business is really going to help, lower that cost curve, So whereas, your just time horizon, right? Like you can use Lovable now, which is an AI tool where you can build, your own website as a non-technical co-founder, which I was. That would have saved me so much time, going around Austin to every single event trying to find a technical co-founder and, getting burned by a couple dev shops and that sort of thing. You could just build it all yourself. So, we implemented it in our business, and it helps with marketing efficiency. It helps with, onboarding our guides in terms of the supply side, like all these different things. It's a game changer.
I probably have the most to learn about how we can implement AI, but just one small way that I'm actually kind of tinkered with it is on the formula development side. Not that we have anything like super complicated, but when we were first getting started, kind of the playbook would say, hey, you pay a beverage consulting firm thousands of dollars to formulate your drink. And we did that for our first few drinks, and then kind of realized like, hey, I have all the supply chain contacts to send me like samples of what I need, and like I can do algebra and math and figure out like the right proportions of things to test out on my own. So I'm actually kind of taking on the formula development side with the help of ChatGPT right now. So just one small way, but yeah, I think I probably have the most to learn in the furthest to come on implementing AI practices.
Sorry, I have one more addition. Recently, you know how you can create GPTs, and I'm sure there's a version of it in every AI, but I've been using like some of my icons, like Emma Creed or Sarah Blakely, or some of these amazing entrepreneurial women that you watch all their podcasts and you just can consume all of them. I have a GPT for like each of them, and I'm just like, extract everything she's ever said, and like when I have a question that's specific to something that, like Whitney Wolf, I was like, I'm starting an ambassador program, Whitney, obviously not speaking to her, but now, to your point, yes, we are set so far ahead because we went to Terry, but historically entrepreneurship was truly reserved for people in the top 1% with the top networks, and now you can have access to all of these amazing networks without even knowing them, so that's a hack.
Yeah, I always say if I got an entrepreneurship when you're earlier, I don't know how I would do it because I basically have a business coach. I tell ChatGPT everything every day. I talk about every email that comes in. And then I say, go all these books that I've read, put the knowledge together and invite me to Nixon. like, I think productivity is 2-3x, haven't had to hire anyone like, so, yeah, productization, getting data, better product, good market, and also just working through things that otherwise I can't even think about.
Hello? Hey.
Oh, we got what's up, Jack. Good.
Jack Holder, graduated 2019, part of the Alumni Board. Thank you all for coming here and sharing your experiences. It's been great so far. Questions kind of for Jonathan. You are kind of a first to market, new, something that really hasn't been done before. Has there been any new competitor that's come and tried to mirror your model, or anything that you now have to face as a challenge with someone trying to, kind of pivot and take over that space that you're trying to build?
Yeah, definitely good question. Expected nothing less out of you, Jack. But yeah, I mean, we definitely have competitors. I think everybody does. The most frequent one that we've seen is these platforms that come up. So I would describe Captain backing up as a marketplace, right? Like we connect customers, we call them adventurers, with guides. So if you're looking to book a trip, that's the deal. But other platforms, they kind of call themselves like a software platform for the guides in addition to a marketplace. And, in my opinion, that lack of focus ends up, kind of messing up strategy. And so they haven't been able, what that leads to is they sign up a guide in Texas and then they sign up a guide in Colorado or whatever, but the marketplace doesn't have liquidity, doesn't have a ton of guides that they can pick and choose from in each market. And so all of their customers fall through the cracks. And then they're not able to get any software traction either. So yeah, we were very distinct in our strategy, and we said, hey, we're going to be the top of mind platform for all outdoor sports. In order to accomplish that without falling into that trap, we're just going to launch fishing. And within fishing, we're just going to start with saltwater fishing. And within saltwater fishing, just Texas, and then just Galveston. And we said, hey, customers looking for a fishing trip in Galveston, Texas are going to have options, whether it's fly fishing for redfish or, a big expensive tuna trip. And then we proved that worked, and we scaled across, very, diligently. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd say that's the winning strategy versus, some other competitors that have come along.
Okay, I'm gonna stand because I'm in the back. So I think Jonathan just touched on it a little bit, but as founders and owners of your own businesses, how do you guys balance innovating versus scaling, and when do you know when to do which? So whether that is adding new features, growing to different markets, launching a new flavor, how do you make those decisions and know when you're ready?
I can start. I think just validation from customers, like constantly keeping that feedback loop open. Again, we have pre-launch, so I'll have a lot more to say next year, but definitely just constantly asking our beta users, our ambassadors, if I wasn't the founder, like pick something wrong with this app, So just making sure that, to your point, focusing on one thing that everyone really likes and getting extremely good at that before you try to be everything and do everything. Because I think a lot with AI also, you can have so many features, and there's so many companies every day popping up with too many features. Like we all have analysis paralysis. There's too many options out there. So sometimes stripping it down is almost a relief to the consumer, even if it doesn't seem like that. So I agree completely with what Jonathan just said, focusing it.
Yeah, we're very much like in that mode right now, honestly, to point your question. We've gotten 2 years worth of sales data under our belts. Again, the market has continued the category has continued to grow a lot. We are seeing what brands are really having that hockey stick growth. I think just looking at data is really getting as much as you can. You can't just have analysis paralysis and wait too long. But yeah, we've just come off of our year-end and quarterly planning meeting, and we've taken small steps. We kind of fired bullets to simplify the product, simplify the branding, and now we're probably going to be streamlining and simplifying the portfolio a little bit. So we're constantly refining kind of what we offer, and this is probably a year that we'll put some more money behind what we believe is going to really work long term and while also kind of hockey stick growth.
Yep, yeah, I totally agree with Mary Helen and Matt. I mean, I think innovation can be this like big shiny thing, and it can be very overrated. You don't want to innovate for the sake of innovation, and so if you have, something that works, you gotta ride that, as far as it'll take you, and then only innovate when you feel like it's necessary, and that's kind of that founder intuition, I think, to know that line. But it goes back to the MVP thing, minimum viable product. If you have something, just get it out there and tweak it and innovate, based on customer feedback. But don't just go into the lab and innovate, for 12 months to come out with something that flops.
Hey everyone, my name is Godswill Wonkwo, currently a program manager in AI infrastructure at Google. A question that I have is, how are y'all able to successfully pivot into entrepreneurship? A lot of us work 9 to 5s, and me, I also have a business as well, but it's really hard to focus on Google and also my business. And it's a constant tug and pull, constant battle. At what point did it make sense for y'all to pivot fully 100% with all your heart, mind, and soul into your business, right? For me, it's like, okay, well, is it a money thing? Is it like a time thing? Like, when is it really just the right move to make that 100% commitment?
Sorry, cut the line. Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those things where it's like a preference. It's like there's a lot of different frameworks that college football coaches use to win a national championship, right? There's no one set way to do it. Some people believe, before taking that leap into your startup, you should de-risk it, by kind of going part-time and, burning the midnight oil on it. But what I did is, I kind of had a decision. So it was, this oil and gas deal happened. Do I go back into oil and gas and do the startup stuff off the side of my desk, or do I go all in on it? And, I'd already done a lot of this research, and, I felt like this was the right thing to do. And I said, hey, if I am doing this off the side of my desk, I don't think it's ever going to get off the ground, because I know that it's going to take a ton of work and it's going to need my full attention. And so that's why I went full time from day one on Captain. But, that comes with its negatives. It was, we were burning cash, before we were making any money, just to put it that way. But, it's a decision, and it's a personal decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's never gonna be the perfect time if you're waiting for a calling or something to make the jump. It's never gonna be perfect. I will say, just as long as you have 6 months of savings stashed away, like you're fine, you're gonna be okay. And it sounds like you have an epic job at Google. Like you will always have a place there, and in corporate America, it's always gonna be there. And everyone always told me that when I was at GB, and I was like, oh, but like, not this job. I'm so lucky to be here. How did I even get? And again, that's that kind of like, imposter syndrome. Yeah, exactly. It's like, who am I to make this jump when so many kids are like wishing for the job that I currently have? But as long as you have savings and passion, it sounds like you already have your business, kind of going on the side. To your point, Jonathan, it's never going to really go anywhere to where it could be if it doesn't have your full time. And that was something I struggled with, like burning the midnight oil. I would get down on myself and make myself feel guilty for not putting in more time in my startup. Startup was like an idea at the time. And then once I quit my job, I had so much, emotional like freedom, and even if you're sitting at a desk all day not doing much, like it takes so much out of you. So if you have savings, I would encourage you to do it. Make your own decision, but it's never going to be the right time.
It's good financial advice.
Yeah, not financial advice. Make your own decision.
Yeah, nothing really else to add there. I was going to say it's never the right time, and it is. Everybody's different. Everybody's business idea is different, and yeah, we're all blessed with great educations from Terry, and I do believe like even in a tough job market, like everybody you can get another job if you have to.
I want to just throw out a recommendation too, because I respect these entrepreneurs so much. They've started businesses from the ground up. There's a book I recommend called Buy Then Build by Walker Deeble. Some of you guys might have read it. There's the concept of buying a business that has been built is another path that you might be comfortable with if you're intimidated by starting from absolute scratch and you don't have to do anything there to do it. So, book will explain, and I'm happy to talk to anyone who's done it because that's essentially what I did a year ago.
Hi, Akeem and hi panel. Class of 26. I have just two quick questions. What class or classes did you take here at Georgia or Terry that has been influential or helpful, the most helpful in your business world? And the second is, how do you determine like ROI on your marketing strategies? And do you have any insight into the attribution to kind of know where you're going to direct your money?
Yeah, I can go first. Leanne and I were just talking about that earlier, but I did the ILA Fellowship, Institute for Leadership Advancement at Georgia, and one of the things that they really harp on is servant leadership, and so honestly didn't really think about putting it into practice in my career prior to captain, but then hiring a team and that sort of thing, it came back to me in my head. And so, we tried to structure things that way. And what that looked like was we would have, monthly meetings with everyone on each person on the team. We had a team of about 10 people total, including myself and my co-founder. And myself and my co-founder would meet with every single person one-on-one and every month and just say, hey, what do you need for success? What can we get you? Donna kind of touched on it too, but what are you missing? What can accelerate you? What can we do to set you up for success? And we had people, these expensive engineers that we were paying a lot of money to, just stop us and say, wow, I'm meeting with the two founders. I thought I was going to get roasted, and you were going to tell me, what I'm doing wrong and how I need to speed things up and all this stuff. And they're like, that's just pretty amazing. And that had direct business results in the fact that we had near zero voluntary turnover, so people that we would hire would stick with us for years, and that just kind of sets a good, strong foundation for your business. So I'd say the ILA Fellowship was my answer there. Bomb to count it.
Well, I don't think there's necessarily one specific course that I can really point to. But I was going to say, I think a lot of the accounting program at UGA, and it's a rigorous program, and it just kind of challenges you. I was always like a pretty good student and made pretty good grades without trying a ton, and then I got in the accounting program and it hit me like a ton of bricks. So I think just like personally, that rigor kind of just helped me like mature and grow up. From a marketing standpoint, like return on investment and whatnot, I kind of chuckle at that because in our stage of the business, we're definitely still throwing a lot of things against the wall, seeing what sticks. And it's so hard, because we have tiers, right? So we our brand sells to a distributor sells to a retailer or a bar restaurant, and then that sells to an end consumer. It's so hard to really to track that, but like conceptually, we feel very strongly that the marketing that works the best for us is when we are able to showcase the product in a way that entices people to take an interest in tasting it, at least trying it, or at least showcasing it in a way that entices them to want to make a purchasing decision the next time that they have an opportunity to. And after that, it's just kind of it's a little bit of a wait and see and kind of see what works and what doesn't. But when we decide what to put money behind from a marketing standpoint, that's the kind of thought process is, are we spending money to showcase the product in a way that's enticing for the consumer.
My favorite class was definitely management, and also congrats on graduation year, well done. But my favorite class was management because we did, and this was pre-chat, but we did those case studies that were like the SWOT analysis, and it was actual businesses, and I was so obsessed with it. I would help a lot of my friends write all of theirs, and it was just so cool because you got to literally do a SWOT analysis on actual companies, and it was a very I don't know if I didn't take an entrepreneurship class, I wish I did at Terry, but I think it was the closest to it. So I really loved management because it made me feel like a little CEO, in college. And then when it comes to marketing, which take it with a grain of salt because I'm very lucky to have kind of built-in distribution through my platform and the television show that my family does. But I will say, like it or not, social media and kind of community building is the way to get in front of customers. And we have been trying to spend absolutely zero on marketing. And whether you have a following or not, building a community is free. Like, you can host a walk in your neighborhood and just throw it on a Facebook group and be like, anyone come, and everyone's like longing for connection nowadays. And that's like, our ambassador program was totally great to launch. Like, we just put it on our story, and all of these young women across the country were like, I want to be a part of this conversation. And now they're, like I said, lighting little fires kind of all over the country, and it's free, and they're posting, and they're doing it for us, and it's, so as little, I know it's so easy to spend on, Google ads, and you want to just like get your product out there and go viral, but a lot of that can just be done organically, and like, the people see when it's organic versus forced, if that makes sense. But I'll let you know on ROI.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll see how it works.
just to add there, I mean, one thing that stuck in my head that somebody told me is first-time founders focus on product, and second-time founders focus on distribution. So oftentimes, the distribution in that organic, community building is far more important than, the product that you've spent all this time to innovate on.
Well, any more? Oh, we have one more. Okay.
Hi everybody, my name is Monica and from class of 2027. And first question for Matt is that, are you looking for volunteer tasters?
Great question.
Just,
Take a look.
okay, so my question is that, what was the hardest part for launching your own business? If you have to highlight a couple of things, for example, raising the money, finding the right people, and kind of a second question attaching to that, did you set up any deadline for yourself to succeed?
So yes, always open to having volunteer tasters. And so I'll get your address. We'll send you some time. Hardest thing about kind of launching, you just mentioned it, about distribution. That's been a lot harder than we expected. Knew it was going to be hard. Luckily have had enough kind of experiences in the background to have a realistic expectation coming into this. But yeah, getting distributors to say yes, especially outside of Georgia, has been a lot harder than we expected. And whether we could probably spend a lot of time talking about why that is. But did I set timelines up? Absolutely, yeah. I think that should be absolutely part of the business plan. Are you always going to hit them? Most likely not. But you gotta have goals to work towards. You gotta have timelines to work towards. Or like Mary Hyland said earlier, sometimes you just kind of get stuck. And you don't take that first step forward. So if you put kind of those timelines out and you really break it down, like, what do I have to get done, today to move forward, take the next step forward, you kind of start to develop those like small wins, like these are the small things that I have to do to meet this deadline, and it becomes not quite as scary. Again, the timing may shift, but like you know if you're on the right path or not.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Matt, Jonathan, Mary Hyland, we have a gift for each of you.
That's the opposite.
You will not leave empty-handed. Thank you guys so much. That's very insightful.